Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marching Arts Podcast, your guide to all things marching. Today, we're going to talk about some crucial items.
Yeah, like what?
I mean, what's better, left Twix or right Twix?
Why not right down the middle, Twix?
See, that's chaotic neutral, and I need that. Or like the people that eat the Kit Kat by just biting on it without breaking off the piece.
Oh, no, those are not chaotic neutral. Those are chaotic evil.
No,
They know it pisses everybody else off.
But okay, but I like to see the chaos. So
No, nobody does.
well,
The person who's eating it doesn't even see the chaos because they're not looking down when they eat it.
no. They're eating it because they want to see the chaos around them.
I know.
Unless they don't notice the chaos, then they're evil.
No, but like the cringe is they want to see the cringe of other people because they don't see themselves biting into the Kit Kat and seeing it as two bars being with like a lunar crescent missing from it.
Okay. Anyway, we digress. Today we're here to talk about how did marching bands
No.
form.
No, the whole podcast today is just on Twix and Kit Kat.
Boy.
Boy.
Okay, fine. I mean, if you want to do it, I mean, left Twix is better than right Twix.
Left Twix is lefter than right Twix, yes. Facts.
And if you don't eat your Kit Kats by taking them off one piece at a time, you're a criminal.
Yeah. There we go.
You
That
heard
was
it
the
here.
podcast.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks. Follow us on all the socials at the Marching Arts Pod. And we
this
don't
has
talk
been your
about band
guys.
anymore. We just talk about candy.
Yeah, this has been your guide to all things candy.
But really, so we're here to talk about band and the marching arts. But this time specifically about marching bands as a whole and where they came from, right? And I don't want to spend too much time on it. We're not super scholarly, researched, booked
Say for
individuals. But okay, I will speak for myself. Okay. I'm the extrovert that spends all my time talking. You're the introvert spends all your time reading, so you know more things than me.
Okay.
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 All right.
All right.
What does that mean?
No.
Okay. Had to do a homie check-in. But no, I mean, where did they come from? I mean, after like a little bit of research that I found, it all kind of point in the same direction that most marching bands kind of started from a military necessity to try to make armies seem more intimidating by making them all in step together, and that's where you get that characteristic like sound like in movies and things like that, right? You know, that makes it seem more impressive. And you know, I don't know if you found anything different, but for me, that's kind of where everything starts, right? And where the necessity and kind of bare bones requirement of a band is, you know, our marching band is walking with purpose. So with that, I mean, that's exactly what the military groups do. They walk with purpose.
I was about to say New Yorkers are probably like we don't need music to walk with purpose.
Yeah, well,
But you know, as we talked with Dr. Meals and on our charity stream earlier, like a lot of things just weren't written down. So like it's possible cavemen had military bands or not military marching bands, just banging sticks on stones. But I guess we'll never know until we unlock time travel.
I mean, but okay. If they use sticks and stones, did they break each other's bones?
Absolutely.
No. So they were marching and beating the crap out of each other at the same time.
Yeah, because well, I mean, isn't that what most military did back in the day as well? With swords?
Touche. Well then, okay. Then what step were they doing straight leg? You think you're doing straight leg, or are they doing chair step?
Chair step. They probably weren't intellectually able to straight leg until much later.
You think they had the big arms?
Oh, absolutely.
No.
You got to show off.
And burn the calories?
Mm-hmm. No, wait. No, now that you say burn the calories, maybe they don't want to burn the calories because it's hard to feed a military.
I mean, if they're cavemen, I mean, they probably didn't live past 20 anyway.
Well, also another thing, we can't say words will never hurt me. Is that the phrase?
Right, because they absolutely do.
Well, no. I was going to say, like,
The words don't hurt you, James?
Well, let's not get into that. But I was going to say cavemen couldn't speak words, so.
Yeah, well, as far as we know.
As far as we know. That's true. They didn't write it down if they could or not. Caveman, can you fact check us on
Yeah,
that?
can we have the cavemen from Geico, fact check us on that? They were there. But I mean, real talk, I really think that's where marching bands came from. Is they as out of a necessity to try to look intimidating, right?
Or be efficient.
Or turning to the stereotype, not really stereotype, but when everyone knows about the trumpet call for in the 40s 50s military, that they run over the loudspeakers, wake everybody up, that even like down to being more efficient.
Right. As a psychologist, it makes me wonder, did military music become a learned emotional thing, or is there something about military music that inspires you automatically?
That's a good question. I mean, I would think it'd be more inspiring. Because thinking back to like the earliest instruments, the drums, the pipe,
right,
came later on, and to your point, sticks and stones. They probably made a rhythm that kind of pumped people up, right? Everybody's got that song that they put on, before their workout or before other things.
Well, besides the people who literally can't follow a beat. I can't remember what the medical term is, but there are those unfortunate souls.
Yeah, have no rhythm. I know a few. Or can't hold a tune, but that's a different story. We're not talking about that. Yeah. But everybody's got the song. Everybody's got a beat or something that makes them feel
some way.
Alive. Because let's face it, it's 2022.
Life doesn't do it, yeah.
And
normal living.
Everyone thinks they feel alive. But I think outside of like a pipe and drums, what else could have been? What else would they have used? Back then, it's hard to think about because we weren't there. But
ooh,
what are they marching with, like a fiddle?
I guess we'd have to go back and see when like string instruments came about, because I'm not talking about like violins, like even way before that, where like maybe they just took some twine and strung it up on something and pluck it, or even like take, I don't know, leather, stuff like that.
But shook it or scraped on it.
And then like we're missing a big thing, whistling. When did whistling come about?
I guess whistling's probably been a thing out of necessity as well, probably as a way to communicate, right? Because I'm not going to do it because it'll blow up the microphone, but that high pitched loud whistle that you typically would see, in like a La Liga soccer game or I'm sorry, La Liga football game. Let me correct myself.
Yikes.
Incorrect terms, and I use the correct terminology, so I'm sorry. Or when, if you live down here in the South, a lot of parents will use it to get the attention of their kids, or really anybody.
We don't recommend it.
Recommend it. I think that's probably the first whistle, but as far as musical whistling goes, I think they kind of went hand in hand. But as far as applying that to a marching band, I don't know. Or are you referring to like, or have I totally missed the mark? Are you referring to like those naval whistles and the...
Oh, no, like human whistles.
Okay.
Because like, I would say it's probably hand in hand with like, they probably thought, oh, this bird call is super cool. Let me try to emulate it. And they found that after thousands of tries of blowing air between their lips, they were able to do it.
Or doing the whole like owl thing. I can't do it.
I can do it, but I guess I would blow out the mic. But also... it reminds me of small children that can't whistle, so they like hum the sound of a whistle and like, ooh.
Margaret's like that. She can't whistle.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You need to teach her before the wedding.
I know. Well, probably by the time this goes up, I'll be married.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you'll be almost married. Probably.
Hey, we're not gonna delay this episode that long.
Well, hopefully not. You're almost there. You're within 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
Well, from time of recording.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like 2 weeks. But anyway, I think the point of this is that there's a lot of different things that go into where marching bands came from, how they started. Just to even think about techniques, right? We joked about, the Geico cavemen doing high step to keep in time. But I mean, think about it. Traditional drum and snare, right? It wasn't on a harness in front of your body where you had accessibility with your hands. It was off to the side,
right?
And the sound went behind you. And it was a bigger drum and a lot hollower sound. And some marching bands still use them today, that kind of style. And it's more like a sling. You're slinging the drum rather than it being stationary. So that's something too. I mean, even marching style evolved at some point, and we talked about this with Dr. Meals. I mean, somebody at some point said, "I want to make this more musical." Hold my beer, and made this new idea of putting multiple instruments together.
Yeah.
And thus, to me, marching band was born.
For you kids out there, hold your water, not hold your beer.
Okay, all right. I forgot. We're appealing to a younger audience. I'm sorry. I do not condone underage drinking. Please be 21.
If you're in America.
If you're international,
it's around 18, 16.
Yeah, it depends. Make sure you're of legal age
in your country.
To drink, please.
Brought to you by
Brought to you by
homies.
But yeah, we can talk about whistles and instruments and nonsense and how the Geico cavemen walk all day. But when did this happen? Right? Or did it happen during the caveman times? Did it happen during the Roman Empire? Did it happen at Abe Lincoln's era? Like, when did it happen?
Oh, I think, the modern marching band came about during Sousa. We literally named a whole, what was it called? Very.
You can do it.
I can do it.
You can get there. Variations?
Yeah, it's a variation of the Tubman after him.
You did it.
You did it.
No.
So I don't know. We probably owe it all due to Sousa for making the modern marching band, because he, made marching bands be a lot more showy, and they weren't just for maybe military purposes. Like, sure, he probably still wanted that military feel, but it was more so to entertain crowds, not crowns. Go Carolina.
Oh, I mean, you had to bring him into it.
Yeah, why not?
We'll save that for the. Pay attention to check out our DCI special episodes that we do during the season. They get heated. So, you derailed me. I had a good. Okay, you made a good point, right? So, but to your point, entertaining crowds, right? I mean, they have to entertain their king or queen or lord,
right,
or whatever. So I mean, they got to entertain a crowd in some way.
Yeah.
But I just thought of something, right? There's ensembles in Italy, and I forget what they were called, but they were like community oriented ensembles that were outside.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But basically they would set up the area, the stage,
mm-hmm.
but it would be outside like an amphitheater.
Mm-hmm.
And then musicians would just show up, and there would be music on the stands, and they would play, and somebody would conduct. There was no like organized ensemble for a while, and the music was being written,
right,
but there wasn't organized ensembles that person was working with. They would just show up, sit down, and play some music, and then leave. I wonder if marching bands were ever that way at the beginning, right? Because how do you get people to march? You just go to a concert ensemble and be like, hey, we're gonna stand up today, George. Look, man, I know you got the tuba, but
right,
I'm gonna need you to stand up and hold the thing, right? They had to gauge interest at some point.
I guess the military bands probably were like, hey, what happens if we just had more than a drum and a stick and a fife, and we included these other instruments? And they're like, hey, you there. Do you not want to be on the front line? We can stick you in the back if you play your saxophone. Not, I guess saxophones didn't exist back then.
No.
Play your
Trumpet, good enough.
trumpet. Yeah, your bugle. There we go.
Bugle, because they didn't have the
Yeah.
valves.
Bugle all the way in the back.
Only partials.
Yeah, and they're like, wait, I can still be in the military and not be called a coward, but I don't have to be on the front line. Heck yeah.
Did you know that there was the original bugle that was just the 1-2, but then they had a like a revamped bugle that was a lot like the first trombones, where you would remove the tuning side and replace it with a different one to change the key. Do you know
That sounds really cumbersome.
Yeah, so the people would show up with their bugle, and then they'd have like this big bag
of slides.
tuning things. So they'd pull out the end and then replace it, which was also some people argue that that's where the trombone started.
Somebody
Because
was like,
it was basically like a really easy bugle,
Yeah.
or they didn't have to replace the
the slide every single time.
slide every time.
Huh,
Which is
interesting.
why people, when they play taps or they play, I don't know what the name of that I mentioned earlier, the military thing when they wake everybody up.
William Tell Fanfare?
Is that William Tell? No.
Digga.
No, that's for races.
Oh, you're right.
I'm talking about the bum bum bada bum 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 bada bum 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 bada bum bum.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That's all done open
Right.
for a trumpet player, but on a bugle they would change the pitch.
Huh,
So
interesting.
you could play in a different key.
Lazy.
Lazy. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we can say John Philip Sousa, but I mean the way that marching bands were done in his time are going to be totally different than they are now.
Oh, absolutely.
So what defines the modern marching band?
Well, we can't just limit ourselves to marching band, because now there's entire
marching
groups. Yeah. Or there's guard, and there's just battery / pit, or even just battery.
But this proves my point. Like Sousa wasn't doing that.
Well, we can probably all still trace it back down to the military, because obviously there were probably military groups that were like, no, drum is all we need. Bang, stick, boom, boom. We
stick,
go.
boom.
No need extraneous sound.
Well, actually, that's I forget what it's called, but in military formation in squads and platoons, they have the flag bearer.
Right. And
So I guess that's probably where that is where that started. So they
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
started with doing drill with their group, and they wanted the flag bearer. There's a name, and I can't remember what it is.
the flag bearer?
Yeah, they have a name.
Flag bearer?
And someone's in the comments going, "This is the name. This is the name.
I am that man.
I am that person." And I apologize for not knowing what your position is.
But yeah, I just see in my mind just somebody so enthusiastic about being the flag bearer, and they're like making it really glamorous. And like, what happens if I got other people to join me to do this for fun?
That makes me think of like
And that's how guard started.
if Will Ferrell like somehow got his hands on the military flag,
Right.
and that's how Color Guard was born. That's what I think.
That's another idea we have to patent now. So if Will Ferrell decides to do that, I'm like, hey, bro,
Hey,
who came up with that first?
Hey man, copyright. You heard it here first.
Right.
I don't want to date when we're doing this recording, but
But
here it is.
yeah, I think probably all groups really just branched off the military and was like, what happens if we do this more showy? And like, now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, we have the guard, but now guard also has, rifles, sabers, all the eclectic tools they use as part of their show. And I was just thinking about how military also does drill, where they have their rifles and they do silent drill.
And they have sabers,
Yeah.
and the silent drill platoon. Anyway, that's not marching. Well, I guess it's marching arts.
I
Yeah.
would say it is. They're all in step.
The
and
silent
whatnot.
drill platoon,
Yeah.
man. Have you seen them in person?
I have not, but like,
They're crazy.
yeah, and they mess up.
cool.
Yikes.
Oh man, it's
That tension.
but it's also really funny when you watch them mess up. If they mess
Right.
up, and they go to fix it, you watch the guy mess up the whole audience, right? Because it'll be like half of a football field, right? Like the home half.
Right.
It's everybody collectively goes ooh.
I go,
And then everybody, of course, then gotta pull out my phone.
right. And then there are people out there who also march. They don't have instruments, but they do formations, whatnot. where there
And
is
that's
no
fair.
music included at all.
That's fair, and that's a good point to bring up. Like at Smith Walbridge, they teach that to the drum major camp.
Really?
They teach instrument, and it's the oldest drum major camp in the
Shout out
country.
to Champaign, Illinois.
Yeah, shout out. There's not much going on there.
Hey,
I mean, there's not. It's farms.
maybe the commenters will be like, "Rrr."
I mean, when I went there,
have you ever tried cow tipping, bro?
No, I haven't. I grew up in suburbia. I didn't do that. Anyway,
Yeah,
but they
silent
taught
drill.
without instrument drill. It was really interesting to watch.
Right.
And also the signaling was a lot different.
Right.
Because when you have a normal band rehearsal, you have somebody on a microphone or somebody
Right.
through a bullhorn or something doing your commands or shouts. But Smith Walbridge teaches you the old style where you actually use the whistles and hand commands to direct the band.
Right. 'Cause
And you're on the
obviously
field marching with them.
in the military, they're not going to hear you from
Right.
thousands of feet away. And it's like somehow you got to communicate with the back of the brigade / regiment / whatever size group you're in.
No. So, interesting point there.
So I guess, oh man, this is even harder then, because you have the bands that don't march in step, but we still consider them marching bands. Like, not Stanford, because I guess they still do march in step, but there's a lot of the Ivy schools.
Don't.
They just get into a shape
And then play, and then
and
they
then
move to a
move to
new
a different
state.
shape. Yeah.
No.
And we still consider them marching art.
Right, but okay, so then since we're going down that route, what is a marching art?
Any group that, I can't even say outdoor, that collectively attempts to make shapes and or music to please or to have a function. I'm gonna end it there, because it could be for pleasing, it could be for military efficiency, it can be for I don't
So
know,
then, okay,
training.
but based off of your definition,
Mhm.
because someone's already done it.
Oh
They
no,
haven't
this
even-
is like
they
it's a
haven't-
hot dog, a sandwich.
They haven't.
We're
They haven't
devolving
even.
into that.
We haven't even started, and someone's already commented. But your definition. So then, by a group of people making music or
And or shapes.
shapes.
Hmm.
So would painters and composers be in a marching art based on your definition? Because it's a group of people, and sometimes pieces are composed by multiple people, and then you also have artist pieces that are painted or designed by multiple people. Is that a marching art? Gotta be specific.
Right.
You have a master. You're gonna get a master's. Working on your master's.
I guess I would say no. I guess I need to expand my definition. Then at least there needs to be some sort of rhythm involved in any of those groups. Some sort of rhythm has to be involved.
So then, would it be easier to change your definition to a group of instrumentalists?
No, because remember we talked about those groups that march, but they don't have any instruments, but they're still there to please the crowd and like show off how good they can, turn on a dime, make shapes, be silent, march at 240 and all be in step.
Beep, 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 beep,
Right.
beep, beep.
Without a metronome, no less.
I mean, I wouldn't survive.
Yeah, they just hear 4 clicks from the whistle.
It was easy to conduct without a metronome,
Mm.
but to march without the metronome, I would get all jacked up. I don't
Some people are just really good and other people need a little help.
I'm jealous of percussionists. That's why you can say that, because you can do that.
Well,
you-
there are,
There's some.
yeah, not even just some. I would say it's uncommon, but the word common is still in there. So it takes a
Cover your
village.
bases.
Yeah, it takes a village to keep a group on time.
What is a marching art? I mean,
I think
I think
music
it
has to be, or rhythm has to be somewhere in that group.
but would you be able to define those groups that don't use instruments or anything as
Yeah,
rhythm-based?
because they're still marching
I guess they're timing
to a
and
certain beat.
beat, or they have or a command, or
Right.
because
And so-
like ROTC groups and things do it by
Right.
command, not necessarily tempo.
But they're all still in step because they all practice a certain rhythm. to the thing they're doing.
So then I guess a marching art kind of defines itself.
Yeah. Well, no,
How would it not?
because
It's an art form.
we still have to include the bands. Well, I guess, yeah, a band is considered an art. So, yeah.
And
But,
music is also an art.
right. But then if a painter is marching while they paint, yeah, I
Then
guess
that would be
is-
a marching art, would it not?
All right, let's get it started. The Marching Arts Podcast, marching artists,
Yeah,
painters,
marching painters,
marching
yeah.
Picassos.
God, how are we gonna do that?
Tell
You have
everybody
to-
bring their canvas. Like, there are easels that you can strap to yourself, I believe, and then just have it hanging in front of you, and you just paint, and everybody just
Can
has
it
to
be
march
directed
and
by
beat.
Bob Ross?
Isn't he dead?
He is,
Right.
but
Just play a video of Bob Ross, and we
Play
just
Bob-
follow his
happy
commands,
little tree here.
and we all start drawing or
Yeah.
painting. Yeah, I guess so.
That'd be cool.
That'll be one of our charity streams if we ever do.
We were on one,
We were on one.
and it was fun, but
Raised close to $1,000.
sure did. Somebody shaved their head.
No, they didn't. They're weird.
I mean, it's on their head. You gotta use advertising, man.
Oh, so now we're just gonna
You
use
gotta learn.
the
I
wide.
gotta teach you marketing.
Sorry, I'm just the book person who, sticks their nose in the book and doesn't look up.
Hey, now. You're looking up at me.
I'm a rock star. Oh God, there's gonna be a whole generation soon that don't know that reference.
No, they don't.
Please,
we old?
PSA,
Yeah.
keep Shrek alive.
Are we officially old?
Hell yeah,
Hell yeah, we're old.
embrace it. It comes for us all.
I don't want to.
Anyways, since we struggled through that question itself, are marching arts more for the performer or for the audience?
I think as a like as a form of activity,
Mhm.
I think it's more for the audience, because think about it, they were made for people that weren't necessarily involved in
Mhm.
it to be entertained or pay attention to it, based
Mhm.
off back to our military
Mhm.
discussion about it. And then when you go to DCI and things
Right.
like that, I still think it's a lot for the audience, because the audience watches the show,
Right.
and the audience could be the judges,
Right,
and they judge a winner,
right,
and then that core gets the win.
right. But here's the rebuttal.
Absolutely.
Do the kids who end up marching DCI remember their scores 30 or 40 years later, or do they remember what DCI taught them?
I think they remember what DCI taught them,
Right.
but then also they remember what place they came in.
That's true, like Dr. Meals.
Like Dr. Meal.
But,
Casually
so-
won 5 times.
So I guess for me, I would always go back to the root of it, where it was a military purpose, so it wasn't necessary to entertain anybody. It was to keep the group regimented or disciplined, or teach them, discipline sense / efficiency. Efficiency,
There you
whatever, man. I'll just
English is hard, I know.
yeah.
I
But
understand.
besides asking staff and directors and anybody who's not technically part of the performing group, how many of them would say, yes, I do the marching art, even if there was no audience?
I don't know.
Especially with COVID, there were still a lot of groups that were practicing and performing
That's a good
and putting on shows, even if they couldn't literally have an audience.
I mean, that's a good question, because I mean, I know I would, like, if
Right.
there was no audience, I'd be out
Yeah,
in the
just
field blowing the
'cause,
whistle.
yeah, you
and-
still love playing and marching with your friends and
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
learning
point.
new music / challenging music.
Yeah, but then to the analogy of the tree falling in the woods, doesn't make any noise. I mean,
Well, yeah, because you're still taking lifelong lessons from it.
yeah, it's true, and you have friends with it, and I guess.
If you poop in the woods and you wipe with poison ivy, you still take that with you.
Hey yo, hey yo,
Hey,
hey yo, Byron. I mean, I guess so, but I think it really just depends on who you ask, because I mean, it can go either way, right? Because you have, to your point, you have it's for the performer, because They're going to put their heart and soul into it. They enjoy doing it.
Right.
They have it for the social aspect.
Right. I will say, you bringing that social aspect, it would not be nearly as big if there wasn't an audience for it.
But there's going to be people that are doing the performance for them, but it's really for the audience.
Because they also get all those extra benefits because of the audience. And like, again, football games, if you're going to a huge football school and you don't want to shell out or join the lottery to win student tickets, just join the marching band. Obviously, it's not as easy as that, but some places it sort of is. Like, you just show up to band camp and they're like, yeah, we'll take you.
Yeah, well, and then also some people will join band in general or a marching art for the trips.
Right.
Just to go somewhere.
Right. Because lots of people, we're privileged. We've been able to travel, but other people, like, I've never left my hometown. And you get... You like fundraise and you get to go to DC or on a cruise, or maybe not heaven forbid, but maybe luckily even out of the country. Or I know some places go to Hawaii. So,
I've never been. I want to go.
So
I know by the time this gets posted, I will not have gone. So
a surprise. Cool. You've been punked.
I'm going to Colorado for the first time.
Yes. Nice.
Like, I don't travel.
It's beautiful.
No. Anyway. So if anyone from Colorado,
you'll be
you've already long been gone by the time you see this, but
they'll post suggestions. You'll be like, well, yeah,
maybe for next time I'll still take them if you got them. But to answer that question, I think it really depends on who you ask.
Because again, sorry to interrupt you, but like DCI, WGI, indoor, all the performers are paying their share. It's not based off of ticket sales.
Right. Well, but then also, how big, to your point, how big or how large would those groups be if there's no audience?
Well,
if the audience was four people in a booth.
I don't want to call ourselves out, but like, how much is the audience is just a layman who has never done a marching art before? And is it just a cyclical of like, we were in marching arts, so therefore we must support the marching arts that come after us?
Nah, man.
We're calling ourselves out. The existential crisis of marching arts.
Dang. But then that's also where you get the people that can't let go.
Yeah.
At the same time, like they marched, like they marched 1 year, or like myself, man. I can't I love band. I'm gonna go back and see Kennesaw State all the time.
Well, I mean, that's also just our alma mater, so there's also that portion. Unless you just don't care and you only care about the band. Yes? No?
Of course I care about the band.
No, I'm saying the other way. Do you not care about the university and only care about the band? Because there are lots of people like that too.
I don't want to make any comments on this. That's going to go public.
Yes.
My public statement is going to be, I really enjoyed my time in the marching band and would do it all over again repeatedly. But I don't
nothing
to
say about
college. Unless it's for the masters.
Right.
Because I need one.
Dr. Harrison. You'd go, would you?
I don't know if I would go for my doctorate.
It's only
in communication.
6 years after your master's.
Yeah, after my master's. Depends on what you do, though.
Yeah.
Some doctorates are shorter.
True. Anyway.
Where
were we?
We were talking about what is a marching
Right, I interrupted you saying that a lot of groups, you still have to pay 100% of your bills because none of it's based on audience ticket sales.
Yeah, and but to that, but I feel like a lot of the reason people pay that money is to have the experience of the audience and have the experience of the competition and have the atmosphere.
Right.
And crowds make the atmosphere. So if there's no audience, people wouldn't do it.
Right.
Or some wouldn't. Some.
If you run a competition of any kind for marching art, please hit us up because we would love to have you on to like just talk about the transparency of like where does the money from ticket sales go to? I think, as kids, we don't really care.
Right.
Because we just show up to a competition, play.
We just want to have fun. We want to perform.
But yeah, once you get to the adult world and you see like how money works and runs everything, no matter what, then you're like, where does all that money go that gets spent on ticket sales?
Man.
Well, besides clinicians and judges and yada yada.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something you brought up a little earlier in our conversation because COVID changed everything. Right. The year I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna put this out in the world.
Smash.
Hulk smash. I'm gonna be upset if 10, 20 years from now, when they're making history bucks for kids, that they don't talk about the years from like 2020 to like 2022, called the COVID years.
2029.
2029,
Book it.
2040,
I said it here first.
2029. COVID's cured.
Well, you know, we're in the day and age of monkeypox. So let's see what happens.
Oh, another one. Ebola's gonna come back around.
At least we have a vaccine for monkeypox, so
There's a vaccine for anything. We're not gonna go down that route.
Yes, the COVID
but-
years.
But in the COVID years, you
Mhm.
know, and we talked about audience members, right?
Right.
And you know, how did the marching arts fare?
Right.
Like, how do they do?
I know.
They had to have taken some kind of like some big financial hit for sure,
Oh,
because a lot of people
absolutely.
donate.
Well, that, and I wonder, now that I'm thinking about it, like, I guess maybe ticket sales were more so just to pay for the facilities that they were using itself. So maybe, in a sense, like, that wasn't maybe necessarily an issue. Because, sorry, we're going to always talk about Kennesaw, so just get used to it, please. Kennesaw, they had to pay for their own tickets to sit at the stadium. So, like, I guess
Right.
that technically wipes
Which
out
we
the-
both feel some type of way about.
Right.
But
anyways, if during COVID they didn't really have to pay for those tickets, right? Or did they? I guess we'd have to ask the director.
well, from my conversations with her,
Mhm.
was that they didn't, because they didn't have a season. They
Right.
weren't allowed in the stadium.
Right.
So when they did like one time when they were in the stadium and they
Right.
filled up to social
Shoot some,
distance,
yeah,
they
videos.
filled up the entire
Stadium,
that
student
whole
section.
student
Yeah.
side of the stadium. And to paint this picture for people that don't know,
Mhm.
which is probably most of the people listening, Kennesaw State they have the U shape, the horseshoe shape stadium with extra stands on one end, so I guess you could technically say it's a full stadium
On a football field.
but around the football field. So, but it's like a U shape. They have the home side, the student section, and the visitor side. And the band sat on the other side of the goalpost on the student side, and it was each side was a different student section. And going back to how bands fared,
Mm.
Kennesaw filled up all three of those sections during COVID, because they needed the social distance and they wanted to
Right.
have that experience for their seniors and things like. So they did this whole big thing in the stadium, but they never did a show, so they didn't have to worry about buying the tickets.
Right.
But on the same token, there's a
Mhm.
lot of more historical programs. You mentioned the Ivy Leagues, or like, but
Right.
I mean, the obvious choice would be Ohio State, right? I'm sure at those bigger schools are more, long-term standing bands like the Jacksonville Marching Southerners.
Mhm.
I'm sure the budget for the marching band is worked into the school's budget.
Right.
So it's an expense to the school. So
Yeah.
like in the COVID years, I'm sure they probably took like an emotional toll for sure, because it did on
Absolutely.
everyone. But as far as finances go, it probably didn't do too bad for them. And I could be wrong. I don't know. Didn't go to the school, so I wouldn't know.
Right.
But that's just my thinking.
Because I know a lot of schools, they usually give you I wouldn't say a lot of schools. There are some schools that give you a stipend to be in the marching band. So who knows if that took a hit. I guess it just depends on the endowments of each individual
Right.
school.
And of the program.
Right. And that's
Or
just
if the
college.
students have to pay to be in it.
Right.
They fund themselves.
Right. And we're just talking about college and high school. Everybody has to pay for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So, well, then again, you cut a lot of competitions, you cut a lot of high school football games, so you don't have to pay for buses. Yes, there are lots of. I came from a place where the band did have to pay for buses. I know there are some counties where like it's just written into the budget for the band.
I mean, we had to pay for them.
Okay. I'm just like buses for competitions or buses for high school football games.
They paid for everything.
Okay.
We had to,
You had to pay for everything.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are places, where the school budget just automatically pays for school buses. Like that's just part of the whole school budget. So, they don't have to worry about that. They don't really have to worry about, again, doing performing arts, facility, fee, usage.
Right.
So I guess it probably came out not as terrible as we probably expected. They've most programs probably still did take a hit, but probably not as terrible.
Yeah. Well, and then also a lot of programs, when COVID happened, kind of shifted to doing more electronic and more, I want to say like more of a social posting for what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, everybody that is interested in DCI at one point or another has seen a in the lot video of insert core name here.
Right.
And a lot of universities and things like that started doing that, or they were filming and putting out their practice sessions.
And like auditions were already moving towards just post your video on YouTube, and then the school would just work through them. And I'm sure that's even a bigger thing now, and it's probably a lot better for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a less stressful environment. Yeah, for sure. I would have preferred to have done that.
Yeah,
but
you just record yourself, send it in instead of sitting in a room with a blind judge, and you're like, oh God.
Yeah, but we didn't get that. I also didn't get the blind judge either.
Oh, really?
I had my first, when I went to Georgia State,
mm-hmm.
my very first audition, I had the director of the band, the director of the music program,
mm-hmm.
the assistant director of the music program, the dean, and the and one of the leadership team members.
Okay.
All sitting there. I just walked in this room. There's like 6 people just staring at me. There's no curtain. And I was like the first audition of the day, so that's why they were all there. And my assumption,
right?
I was like 18, mm-hmm. But like I just walk in, I'm like, ooh.
And the crazy thing is, like, it's interesting that they judge you individually. Well, I guess just to be able to know that you play, but like once you're in the marching band, you really never play by yourself. So it's like.
Yeah. But I mean, marching band auditions, at least on the college level,
mm-hmm.
it's just to make sure you know what you're doing.
Right.
There's
there's still lots of programs out there. It's like
that are selective.
You can play, sure. Well, both ends of the spectrum. Like they are very super selective. We only have 150 spots because that's what our band has always been. And then there's groups that are like, we'll just take everybody who wants to join.
Yeah.
I want to say Vanderbilt is like that. Not
what about
like,
taking everybody or select number?
Taking everybody. And like, I'm not saying it's good one way or the other. It's just like, a lot of different places just have different ways to do it.
Yeah. But I think those numbers fluctuated a lot,
mm-hmm.
In COVID and people had to change a lot. Right. And
right.
I mean, one of the things being that more bands started entering more electronic sounds, right? Because people started experimenting. Everybody got locked indoors.
Yeah. Even before COVID, DCI is considered the trailblazer of marching arts music. And
I think in 2019, 2018, 2018, it was like unheard of for people doing the electronic stuff. Or like,
I would say more 2015, 2014.
I mean, but I guess we're thinking about two different things. I'm thinking specifically more about the like introducing electronic pumped in sounds while the band's playing, like not necessarily like a synth, but like
speakers, like voices,
adding, to be extreme, like adding like dubstep noises into the band show.
My high school was doing that in like 2014, 2015.
No, well then maybe I just don't know anything.
You're a boomer.
I am a boomer,
which is funny because you're younger, but
old man. But I mean, with COVID, everybody getting locked indoors and people are going to start trying stuff and experimenting things, and music is part of that. And personally, to kind of go off, I mean, you already said it, to go off of my boomer status with regards to marching band, I prefer the old, like minimal electronics. Like, sure, you gotta have it to fill in the effect, like the synths and like the recordings and things like that. All those types of things I'm okay with. But when you start introducing like TV screens and like now, like, oh man, I'm trying to forget. And I'm trying to remember what group it was, but there was a group. And maybe one of their drumline people is listening here, but they like hid half their drum line for like all of the show in this podium that had a big TV on it. And the podium moved around the field, so it looked like there was nothing behind, like a magic trick. And then at the end, they filed their drum lineup, snares, tenors, cymbals, basses, and they all marched through this podium.
Oh, cool.
But the number doubled when it came out. It's really cool. So it's like they had like half the drum line. Like those things are cool, but like there was
so you would prefer it more be visual than
I would prefer the drill
musical.
be the star of the show and the music be the effect. Rather than there's groups that like have the light up uniforms and stuff.
Right.
That's just a nightmare to me.
You don't like light up uniforms?
I don't.
I do. Like
there's so many issues. It's a logistical
oh yeah,
nightmare to
I was
me.
gonna get to that.
Okay.
But let's go with uniforms just for a second. I think I'm calling out the drill writers for Kennesaw, but it is such a unique uniform because you have the logos and whatnot, the visual representations on the front of the uniform,
right?
But then the back is a completely different color, and I think Kennesaw underutilizes that visual effect of turning the band around.
Man.
So any drill writers, if you have a very unique front of the uniform and like your back is like just completely different, you should incorporate that more into the visual effects.
Yeah, or if like the back is like very plain, maybe avoid that. But most uniforms are that way because they want you to be front facing. So.
Right. Or it's just the same color in the back as it is the front. The same front.
Like
no, Kennesaw has.
Well, they have the gray with the color, but then the rest of it was black, and the back was black.
Right, but the gray still stands out from the back. Does that make sense?
I guess.
But anyways, what I was gonna get to is like, I guess with the definition that we created, yes, we should be embracing electronics in all the marching arts because it is adding that extra dimension. The more dimensions you can add, I think the more the groups have to work with, and the more differentiation we'll be seeing between the groups. And obviously there'll always be that one leading group and everybody's like, oh, they're winning everything, let's go copy them for a while. And then somebody else will be like, no, I've unlocked this secret sauce, so let me throw that in. Oops, I spilt a little chemical X into this and now it's getting spicy.
I don't know, I guess I'm just a traditionalist.
Yes, I will say the technology probably isn't there quite yet because of how often there are F-ups on competitions. Because we live in Atlanta, so like I go to DCI Atlanta a lot, or every single year.
Right.
And I don't think there's ever been a year or at least one corps has either had their synth screw up or like, you press a button and then the band like, matches up to like the audio recordings of like somebody talking or somebody singing. Like there's always at least one group where it just doesn't end up working out, and then their scores is taking an absolute hit because literally
there goes your
30%. 30% of your general effect score is based on that electronics. Which
is why, to me personally, I like the more traditional, having less of it.
Right.
So that's easier to clean. You keep your general effect.
Well, and then it's gonna be where as more and more electronics get introduced, there will be those cores that will be daring and be like, well, we'll just scale it back, simple it down, and then like everybody like, yeah, we love that, and then they'll do really well. But like, I just think in general, it's just always gonna keep moving forward towards more and more electronics.
Okay, well then, if we're moving in the direction of electronics now, where are we going in 50 years from now when we're old? More old than now when we're in our
in the band world we're old. In the marching arts world we're old.
We're very old in the marching arts world.
I would say electronic instruments personally. So like not even just like literal instruments, but all instruments, tools. We can call
Sticks and stones.
Yes, we can literally call the instruments that make sounds, but also guard. They use tools, and we still call them their instruments of the guard.
Do you think in 50 years... Oh, man, this is wild. I just got a crazy idea. So, you know how professional drone pilots are being used for a lot more things like music
Right.
videos and security.
Right.
And, could you imagine
A drone like
a
show
drone
part of the
marching
show.
band?
I was gonna say
Think about that.
that technically is already a thing because like in the Asian part of the world, they do have like thousands of drones up in the sky just doing little formations, and I guess that can we call that a marching art?
No, they're not
'Cause-
marching though.
Yeah, like but like and I guess there is
I don't think I don't think drones could be considered marching art.
but they're still
It'd be-
technically
I think-
following a rhythm because they have to make a shape all together at the same time, or else it just looks like a blob.
Okay, well, so then would it be a marching art or performance art?
Do we really distinguish between the two?
I guess not. But yeah, because then I guess we get into the whole world of like opera and
Right. Hey, WGI and indoor, do you consider yourself a marching art, or do you consider yourself a performance art, or do you feel like you straddle the line? Because yeah, I guess like you said, any group that's sitting or on stage would be more performing than a marching art.
Yeah.
But I thought where you were going to take it was that like drones could just be more and more part of a DCI show. Where like,
Like
you know,
a
you
visual
still
effect?
you still have the people on the field because obviously people aren't still there to see the actual musicians, but
Right.
like drones would add. Now that we said it, I'm sure it's going to show up this year on June 24th. We'll be like, we called it.
Called it.
And if it doesn't, somebody who's watching this, watching/listening to the podcast and just like, why has
That's a
nobody
great
thought of
idea.
why has nobody thought of this?
Copyright.
Yeah, every time you add a drone to a show now, we get a penny
Yeah. I
for
want,
each drone.
not $1.
For each drone. That's expensive. All
Drones
DCI.
are also expensive.
Well, yeah, then they won't be able to afford the dollar. We'd have to get the penny. Harrison, we gotta think the long game here. Haven't you seen Office Space?
No.
You need to watch it. It's a good movie.
No. I don't watch movies.
Wow. Anyways, so back to
Anyways.
my thing. I think
Okay. All right.
I think instead of putting microphones on instruments and, you know, like lights on instruments, I think we will see more electronic symphonic instruments on the field because we already have like electronic orchestra, violins and
That's true. And
cellos,
cellos
whatnot,
and-
where you just plug it in, and we're
Plug
getting to
it
the
in,
point.
Plug it in.
We have wireless connections between guitars and amps and whatnot. So like, I think once we get all the kinks sorted out of like things not working, I do think that there will be more just electronic representation within the instruments themselves. And then we'll have to start checking people's instruments / the guard equipment / the percussion drumsticks to see they're not performance enhancing.
Performance enhancing technology.
Because you imagine like,
Cyborgs.
yeah, they can't play like 240 with a normal drumstick, but with the electronic drumstick, then maybe there's like a weight in there
There's
or
like
a motor.
No. If they hold it the certain way, the tip of the drumstick has like
An extra
an extra
head.
what's the word? Like a piston in it.
Oh yeah.
It's like
And then like maybe the flags, like they'll have something in them where they just get an extra 2 or 3 tosses out of them just because of
they're balanced,
yeah.
like
but,
a
like,
mace is.
That'll be a whole another ethical conundrum. But I mean, with all new innovations, there's always ethics that we have to think
There's
about.
always issues with everything. Well, this is a good question. Do you think we will hit a limit in the subdivision of time and notes played in the marching arts?
If what I said rang true and they were like, nah, cheating won't be a problem, then no.
So you're
'Cause-
saying like people will start counting like 64th notes?
Right. I guess for a traditional human that does not have any
what defines a traditional human?
no cybernetic
James.
enhancements.
Oh my gosh.
And we can say right now
Okay.
prosthetics are not cybernetic enhancements because they are not better than a human limb.
Okay.
But
Traditional human.
I think yes. I think once we hit like maybe 6 tuplets or 7 or 8 tuplets, where it starts to get hard for people to actually subdivide that and actually put that in action, I think we will start to hit that wall. And maybe that's when they're like, okay, we need more electronic instruments.
And see, to me, I don't know. I feel like it is the most efficient between eighth notes and 16th notes. I don't
triplets?
Huh?
So triplets?
I mean, I guess, but it depends on how you subdivide.
Right. Well, we're also humans, and we're very like, we need the new thing. We need the new thing.
But what I mean is like either eighth notes or 16th notes. Not in. I realized I said in between, but I mean either eighth note or 16th because it's the most efficient way. I don't like. There's not a ton of marching pieces, at least in the general public, that require 30-second notes, unless you're in percussion.
I was about to say.
Or possibly in woodwinds.
But you don't think, like, let's say Crown is known for the brass runs. You don't think they're practicing or
but
trying
that's not to me. DCI is not technically general marching band, right? Because that's more selective that's like the professional level,
right?
So to me, that's not general. Like you wouldn't consider the NFL general football. Like,
come on, little Timmy, why can't you run a 4.0?
We're putting a 9-year-old against a 350-pound lineman that benches like 700 pounds,
and their hand is the size of like
their entire torso.
Yeah,
like I don't know. I think for the general public, eighth notes and 16th notes. Oh, it works best.
It's already there.
So we're already there.
Okay.
But then again, right? We have already established I am a boomer with it comes to marching style and I don't want to say etiquette, but marching style. I don't know. I just think this is the best way to do it. Now, I'm gonna be wrong. Somebody's gonna reinvent it, and they're gonna have an epiphany, and this is how we're gonna do it, and they're gonna write a book about it, and I'm gonna read it and probably disagree, but still do it anyway because I'm stubborn.
I think we can both agree though that humans will never be out of the equation.
Oh no,
because we're not going to get robots,
touch, especially when it comes to drill writing. You can have a computer write drill for you.
I would love to see a computer write drill.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those videos where people are like, I asked an AI to listen to 1,000 hours of,
or like look at 1,000 paintings and then start painting like Baroque or something. Like,
I wonder if we would do that with drill. One of our guests that's going to come on here. I don't know if he'll have already come on here by this or have his episode in here by now, but he writes drill and wants to talk about it.
Well, this is the second episode, Harrison. So.
Is this?
Yes.
Oh.
Technically first.
Okay, well, we recorded so many of these already.
Yeah, just to go show, like, if you don't think technology issues are still a thing, we've recorded, like, so many episodes, again, so many times already. So you guys will never see that, but...
Yeah. But anyway, so then I guess a future guest that we're going to have on here writes drill. And he's a good friend of mine. Maybe we'll ask him about that.
Yeah.
If he can do that for us to see what happens.
Yeah, but to close us up, where would you like to see the marching arts go? And what do you think we, as a podcast and maybe just as a general audience, can do to help foster the marching arts / shape it?
So I see the marching arts being a constant
man of constant sorrow.
I mean, just being consistent and growing consistently. I mean, because a lot of people say what you want about marching band, but it's like an integral part of really any high school or college experience. When if you go to a football game, there's more than likely a marching band. Some places don't have them. At least at the high school level, there's and as that continues, I think marching band, and as it evolves, and if they introduce more electronics and drones,
you okay there, bud?
Huh?
You okay there, bud?
Yeah, I've had a long day, But, as that grows and they add electronics, I can see marching band continue to adapt, continue to be the largest student bodies on the, what did I say? Largest student bodies on campuses around the country and around the world. I mean, and how personally how I would like to shape that is kind of, you know, and if you guys go back and watch our introduction, we talk about why we do this podcast. Part of the reason is for that, right? I want to, you know, inform people how marching band is, what life in the marching arts is like.
What's it like in other groups?
Right. How it relates to other things outside of the marching arts, because it's a big deal. It impacts a lot. Like all the way up to, if you live in the U.S., all the way up to the presidency. There's been presidents that have been in marching band and played instruments. So it's just interesting to see where people end up and kind of how we're all kind of connected in that way. So for me to say how I would like to shape it is I would like to cultivate a community of individuals that feel passionately and comfortable enough to talk about their experiences in it, and also give other people the knowledge and spread that to grow the art ultimately.
Yeah, well said. I was just gonna add, I know football will probably never go away. I know, like, studies show that, yes, participation is declining because, you know, there's a lot of injuries involved, but it is part of American identity. And there will be an episode where we cover marching arts not in America. So, like, we'll see, like, these are how places survive without, you know, football and marching arts being tied so intricately. So maybe we can see more of that happening over here. But
I would love that.
I think we should probably try to look at more alternative avenues instead of just like football games and like marching. You know, like DCI, WGI, indoor, they've already separated themselves from football. But I think it always, like you said, just comes down to more community outreach and just like doing more performances for your local, I almost said Bellins, your local community members. Whether that be, you know, just like inviting people to practices and just doing a run at the very end. I know we all hate parades, but more parades.
Some people like parades.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not one, but
like everybody loves a good parade because you got free candy, free entertainment, you get to see cool floats, and you get to hear. Yeah, well, we'll get there. Maybe we'll do a whole podcast. How can we make more parades better for marching arts members?
Is that something you guys would want to hear?
Let us know in the comments.
For sure, let us know. Shoot, I mean, I'm the one monitoring the email, and the socials. So if you do have comments, let us know.
But definitely, God, can we please convince Congress to put more money into the marching arts for our public schools? Because I think,
how about just music
in general,
education in general,
right?
Because it's not there.
But what I think would be really cool is like if elementary and middle school kids took field trips to the high school to see the groups perform.
I think that'd be nice.
Because, you know, only most high schools / you know, most feeder systems are, you know, within a couple miles of each other. Just bus up the grades up for a day and just have all the different groups perform. Because, you know, like when you're younger, you're more impressionable. So like just more exposure you got to more things, the more likely you're to say, cool, that's something I want to strive for and join.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know, someone can catch wind of this podcast and hear us talk about these types of things and gain an interest in that way. But I mean, how do we shape it? I mean, just keep doing what we're doing.
Just educating people.
Yeah.
Tell them to open your minds and look at different viewpoints and perspectives Ayo. You know, just be open, research other groups, find out what else is out there, because what your group doing is common. There's a central theme, but the way we all get to that end goal is very different. So just doing research on other groups, because like maybe you have a friend in another high school and the way they run practices, the way they teach, the way they do pedagogy, is that what it's called?
I think so.
I don't know. We'll just throw the word pedagogy in there because that's
we're smart.
The high school teachers threw around.
We have degrees.
Right. You know, just open yourself up to what else is done in the world of the marching arts. But any other words of wisdom, Harrison?
Me, words of wisdom.
Brush your teeth, floss.
You brush your teeth. Don't do drugs. Make sure you're of legal drinking age in your country.
Don't eat and then play.
Don't eat and then play. Please do not eat and then play.
Only drink water.
Even if you think you're being slick about it, you're gonna ruin your instrument over a long period of time.
Only drink water before you play.
Only drink water if you are involved with your instrument in any way.
Soda. Oh God.
And don't drink a bunch of milk and then go through band camp.
Now we just started the milk challenge. Because somebody's gonna be like, he said not to do it, so therefore we have to.
Okay, but like we could say anything. Like I said, I also said don't do drugs. So take that as you will. So why'd you take us out of here?
All right, this has been whatever. Well, let me restart that. This has been the Marching Arts Podcast. You can find us on all the socials at the Marching Arts Pod. That's POD. You should know all the socials. Anyways, this has been Harrison. I'm James, and this has been your guide to all things marching.